The Empire's oversight, the Galactic Empire, had ruled over countless planets, expanding its power across the galaxy without mercy or hesitation. For centuries, it had crushed any resistance that dared to challenge its might. From the distant stars to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, the Empire believed it was unstoppable. And who could argue with that? With fleets of warships, legions of soldiers, and technology far beyond any other civilization, the Empire was the definition of power. Yet, on one insignificant planet, something was brewing. A small blue world called Earth, located on the edge of the galaxy, far from the Empire's radar. To the Empire, Earth was nothing more than a blip on a star chart. A planet with primitive creatures, humans who didn't even have interstellar travel. To them, Earth was a curiosity, but not a threat. For years, the Empire watched Earth with indifference. They noticed the humans' technological advancements, but dismissed them as insignificant. Their space missions were limited, their weapons primitive, and their political systems chaotic. No one on Earth had the power or ambition to challenge the might of the Empire, or so they thought, deep within the shadows of this seemingly helpless planet. However, something was quietly growing, a force that would soon prove the Empire wrong. The humans, who had been dismissed and overlooked, were beginning to realize their own potential. They were intelligent, creative, and resourceful. They had begun to understand the Empire's vast operations, learning more about its inner workings with every passing year. The Empire, too confident in its superiority, failed to notice the signs, while they were distracted by the conquests of other civilizations. A group of humans began to form a resistance. These were not just ordinary people. They were scientists, strategists, and leaders, individuals who knew how to work in the shadows and who were determined to protect their world. They began by stealing small pieces of technology and significant items to the Empire, but powerful weapons in the hands of the humans. At first, the Empire dismissed these small attacks as mere coincidence. A few damaged satellites here, a disabled space station there. These events seemed too trivial to matter. The Empire was far too large, far too advanced, to be bothered by the actions of a species with no means of posing any real threat. The humans knew they had to start small. They could not take on the Empire directly, not yet, but they had a plan that would eventually shake the very foundations of the Empire. It wasn't their technology that would make the difference. It was their will, their ability to adapt, and their unbreakable spirit. They were underestimated, but they would soon show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. Meanwhile, the Empire's commanders were focused on their next big conquest. Their eyes were set on a newly discovered planet in another star system, one they believed would provide a strategic advantage. They didn't see the growing rebellion on Earth as anything more than a nuisance. But Earth's resistance was already building, preparing for a strike that the Empire would never expect. The first major move came when the humans targeted a small, isolated Empire outpost. This outpost, on the edge of their territory, was important. For the Empire's communication network, the humans, with their newfound skills and understanding of the Empire's technology, launched a covert operation to disable the outpost. They used homemade explosives and basic weapons, but it was enough to disrupt the outpost's operations for days. When the Empire finally noticed, it was already too late. They sent a fleet to investigate, but by then, the humans had already retreated into the shadows. This small victory, while seemingly insignificant, was the first warning sign to the Empire. The humans were not as helpless as they thought. Back on Earth, the resistance celebrated their success, knowing they had just made their first real mark against the Empire. But they also knew the real battle was yet to come. They would need more than just small victories to defeat an enemy as powerful as the Empire. They would need strategy, they would need unity, and most of all, they would need to remain unnoticed at least for now. The Empire, however, remained blind to the rising threat. Their commanders were too focused on their grand plans, too consumed by their arrogance to see the quiet rebellion brewing on Earth. They believed that the humans were weak and would eventually give in to the Empire's superior forces. But the humans were about to prove them wrong in a way no one could have anticipated. As the months passed, Earth's resistance grew bolder. They began to form alliances with other civilizations, secretly reaching out to those who had been subjugated by the Empire. Each victory, each success, brought them closer to their ultimate goal, to destroy the Empire and show the galaxy that humans were not to be underestimated. But the Empire would not realize the danger until it was too late. They would learn, too late, that they had made a grave mistake, and that mistake would cost them everything. The first strike, the days turned to weeks, and the humans continued to work in silence, building their strength and patience. The Empire, still confident in its power, continued its expansion without a second thought. They underestimated the humans, still believing their forces could not possibly challenge the might of the Galactic Empire. But what the Empire didn't understand was that humanity's strength lay not in its technology, but in its unyielding spirit. Earth's resistance had learned, adapted, and grown stronger with each passing day. They had formed alliances with other planets, hidden deep in the outer reaches of the galaxy, who had suffered under the Empire's rule. Together, they began to strategize, planning for the day they would strike back. The time had come for the humans to show the Empire that they were no longer to be ignored. The first true test of their power came when a small fleet of human ships, equipped with stolen Empire technology, left Earth's atmosphere. These were not the massive warships of the Empire, but they were fast, stealthy, and well-coordinated. The humans had learned how to use their small numbers to their advantage, attacking swiftly and then disappearing before the Empire could respond. Their target was a key communication hub, an Empire outpost that was crucial to their control of the galaxy. If the humans could take it down, it would be a significant blow to the Empire's ability to maintain its grip on power. It was a dangerous mission, one that could easily end in disaster, but the resistance was determined. The plan was simple: infiltrate the outpost, disable its communications, and retreat before the Empire could retaliate. As the human fleet approached the outpost, they remained out of sight, using the asteroid fields around the system to hide their movements. The Empire had grown complacent in its control over the region and hadn't anticipated any real threat. Their security was lax, their sensors dull. The humans, however, were more prepared than anyone could have imagined. With careful precision, the human fleet struck. Small, powerful bombs, designed using the Empire's own technology, were dropped on the communication hub. Explosions rocked the station, sending debris scattering into space. The Empire's alarm systems blared, but by the time their forces could respond, the human fleet was already retreating into the vast darkness of space. For the Empire, it was a moment of disbelief. The communication hub, a critical part of their control network, had been destroyed, and no one knew who was responsible. Back on Earth, the resistance was jubilant. Their first major strike had been a success, but they also knew that the real battle had only just begun. The Empire would not take this lightly. They would retaliate, and they would come at Earth with everything they had. The Resistance knew that they would have to prepare for the Empire's wrath, but they were ready. They had proven they could strike the Empire where it hurt, and they wouldn't stop now. Across the galaxy, the Empire was in disarray. Commanders scrambled to understand what had just happened. How could a group of humans, barely advanced beyond their own atmosphere, have pulled off such a devastating attack? They sent out fleets to search for the culprits, but the humans had vanished into the depths of space once more, leaving no trace behind. Frustration spread through the Empire's ranks. How could they allow such an insignificant species to challenge them? The Emperor, enraged by the audacity of the humans, ordered his most trusted generals to find and destroy the Resistance. There would be no more mercy. Earth would pay for its defiance. But the humans were already one step ahead. They had anticipated the Empire's response, and they had a plan in place. The Empire's arrogance had blinded them, and now the humans would take advantage of their overconfidence. The small victories had already turned into something much bigger. The humans had proven they were no longer a threat to be ignored. They had shown the galaxy that they could strike fear into the heart of the most powerful empire in existence. And this was just the beginning. As the Empire's forces mobilized, determined to crush the human resistance once and for all, the humans made their next move. Their attacks would become bolder, their strategies more sophisticated. They were no longer hiding in the shadows, they were ready to make their stand. The war for the galaxy had begun, and the humans were no longer the underdogs. They were a force to be reckoned with. The Empire would soon learn the hard way that ignoring humanity's potential was the greatest mistake they had ever made. The Empire Strikes Back. The Galactic Empire was not accustomed to losing. When news of the destroyed communication hub reached the Emperor's ears, it sparked fury throughout the Empire. How could such an insignificant planet, home to a primitive species, defy them? To the Emperor, this was no mere act of rebellion, it was an affront to the Empire's very existence, and he would make sure humanity learned the price of underestimating the Empire's power. In response, the Emperor ordered the creation of an entire battle fleet, one meant specifically to crush the human resistance once and for all. Massive warships, brimming with the most advanced weapons the Empire had at its disposal, were assembled in the deepest sectors of space. The fleet would leave no stone unturned in its mission to annihilate Earth's resistance and its people. As the fleet made its way toward Earth, the humans on the ground were aware that a great storm was coming. The Resistance had already prepared for such a retaliation. Earth's leaders and fighters knew that this battle would define everything. The Empire's fleet was large, but the humans were prepared, and they had learned how to exploit the Empire's greatest weakness, their arrogance. The humans didn't have the vast fleets the Empire commanded, but they had something more dangerous. Earth's resistance had spent years studying the Empire's military tactics, learning how their fleets operated, where their vulnerabilities lay. With each strike, the resistance had grown stronger, smarter, and more resourceful. As the Empire's ships descended into the solar system, their sensors picked up a surprise human ships waiting for them, hidden in the asteroid fields beyond Earth's orbit. These were not the usual human ships, these were modified, stealthy vessels, designed for one purpose: to sabotage, to strike quickly, and to disappear. The first salvo came out of nowhere. A burst of energy erupted from the darkness, hitting the lead ship of the Empire's fleet with devastating force. The attack was swift and precise, another small victory for the humans. But this time, The Empire had no idea how it happened. The humans had struck again, but it wasn't just a small outpost. This was an attack on the Empire's pride, on its power. Chaos erupted in the Empire's fleet as their systems scrambled to regain control. Damage reports flooded in from all directions. The humans, with their advanced tactics and precise planning, had struck a significant blow. But this was only the beginning. In retaliation, the Empire launched its full assault. Their warships, brimming with firepower, opened fire on Earth's defenses. The battle for Earth had begun in earnest. Laser beams streaked across space, striking the human ships that dared to challenge the Empire. The sky was filled with the sounds of battle, the thunderous roar of exploding warships, and the sharp crack of energy blasts filled the void of space. But the humans were not unprepared. They fought back with everything they had. Small but powerful human ships darted between the Empire's enormous warships, launching precision strikes on vulnerable points. The human fighters, many of whom had never seen space combat until recently, were proving to be more skilled than anyone had expected. Earth's resistance knew that this battle was their most critical moment. If they couldn't hold their ground, the Empire would erase them, and the galaxy would remain under the iron grip of the Emperor. They fought with desperation, knowing that their lives and the future of their planet depended on their success. For every ship the Empire destroyed, the humans destroyed one of theirs. For every battle won, the humans adapted and improved. And as the Empire's fleet grew more and more frustrated, something unexpected happened. Humanity's resilience began to turn the tide. The Empire had never faced an enemy like this before. They were used to crushing rebellions with overwhelming force, but the humans were different. They had been pushed to the brink of destruction and had refused to die. Each strike from the Empire only fueled their resolve to fight harder. The battle raged for days, and still the humans held their ground. Despite the Empire's overwhelming numbers, the resistance continued to surprise them at every turn. It was as if the Empire's might was useless against the sheer determination of the humans. And in the midst of it all, a new strategy emerged. A small group of human fighters, using stolen Empire technology, managed to infiltrate the Empire's flagship. They made their way to the control room, and with a mixture of cunning and sheer will, they managed to disable the ship's command systems. With the flagship rendered useless, the Empire's forces lost their coordination. Without leadership, the fleet began to fall apart. Chaos spread throughout the Empire's forces as their once unbeatable might faltered. The humans, through sheer force of will and unparalleled strategy, had crippled the Empire's flagship, dealing a blow that would change the course of the war. The Empire's response was immediate but disorganized. Their ships scattered, attempting to regroup, but the damage was done. The humans had shown them a critical truth. They were no longer the underdogs. They had proven that no matter how big the Empire's forces were, no matter how many ships they controlled, humans could fight back and win. As the Empire's fleet retreated, their commanders realized they had underestimated the humans in ways they could never have predicted. The humans were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for their future, for their freedom. And with each battle, they were proving that they would not be crushed. The Empire had made its mistake, and it was now paying the price. But this was only the beginning. The humans would not stop. Their fight for the galaxy was just getting started. The fall of the Empire, the Galactic Empire, was unraveling, piece by piece, faster than any of its commanders could comprehend. It had once been an unshakable force, its power unmatched across the galaxy. Now, it was on the brink of destruction. at the hands of another empire, but by a small, seemingly insignificant species that the empire had long ago dismissed as weak as the remnants of the empire's once mighty fleet limped back from their failed assault on Earth. There was only one thought in the minds of the empire's leaders: revenge. The humans had embarrassed them. They had struck their pride, and now the empire would make them pay. But the humans were not intimidated. They were not afraid of the empire's retaliation. They were ready. Earth's resistance had already set their next plan into motion. They had studied the empire's tactics, and they knew one thing: the empire's strength lay not in their number of ships or soldiers, but in their leadership. The emperor, the generals, the commanders, they were the ones who kept the empire's forces together. Without them, the empire was just a collection of weak, disconnected ships. So, the humans made their move. They attacked not with overwhelming firepower, but with precision. Their target was the heart of the empire itself, the emperor's personal flagship, the most secure and heavily guarded vessel in the fleet. The human fleet was small, but it was fast, using the same stealth tactics that had worked in previous attacks. They snuck into the heart of the empire's remaining forces, taking out key supply lines and communication hubs. The empire, stretched thin and disoriented after their losses, couldn't react fast enough. The humans were in position. The humans had prepared for this final strike for months. They had developed a weapon, a powerful EMP device designed to disable the entire fleet's electrical systems. The resistance knew that if they could get close enough to the emperor's flagship, they would cripple the entire empire's command structure. The humans, determined and focused, made their way toward the heart of the empire's fleet, their hearts set on one goal: the destruction of the empire's leadership. As their ships closed in on the flagship, the humans launched the EMP device, sending out a pulse of energy that disrupted the fleet's electronics and shut down the empire's communications. For the first time in years, the empire's forces were thrown into disarray. The once proud ships, with their advanced technology, were now nothing more than floating hulks, blind and vulnerable. The humans had severed the empire's lifeline, and then, without warning, the humans struck the final blow. They launched a direct assault on the emperor's flagship, overwhelming its defenses with superior tactics and relentless determination. The battle was swift, and the humans made sure that no trace of the empire's leadership remained. The emperor, once the ruler of an unstoppable empire, was now a prisoner in the hands of the very species he had dismissed. The fall of the emperor was the final nail in the coffin for the empire. With their leadership destroyed, the remaining forces scattered in fear and confusion. The once unified fleet disintegrated, and the empire's territories, now leaderless, crumbled one by one. The humans had achieved the impossible. They had toppled an empire that had seemed invincible. But even in their moment of triumph, the humans knew this victory was only the beginning. The galaxy would remember the rise of Earth's resistance, and the empire's fall would be a warning to anyone who dared to underestimate humanity. The battle had been long and brutal, but in the end, humanity had won. Against all odds, against the most powerful force the galaxy had ever known, the humans had proven that they were not to be underestimated. They had taken down the Galactic Empire, not with superior firepower or vast numbers, but with intelligence, strategy, and an unwavering will to survive. As Earth's resistance looked out over the remains of the Empire, there was a moment of quiet. The galaxy was no longer under the oppressive rule of a single empire. Now, It was time for the humans to rebuild and to show the galaxy what true power looked like, not in destruction, but in unity, strength, and resilience. For the first time in history, humanity stood tall, not as the underdogs, but as the new leaders of the galaxy.